Hey you. Yeah, you, the man who's been second-guessing her texts, reading into mixed signals, wondering if it's you or just a game. Let me ask you this. How many times have you lost peace of mind chasing clarity from someone who enjoys the confusion? Today's video is your wake-up call. We're diving into how to outsmart any woman playing games with your heart, not with manipulation, but with stoic strength, emotional mastery, and unshakable self-respect. Because the truth is, you don't win by playing her game. You win by stepping off the board entirely. So if you're done being the confused, overthinking version of yourself, subscribe, like, and walk with us here on Stoic Love. This is where men reclaim their peace and their power. Remember, the calmest man in the room is the most dangerous, and the man who cannot be played is the one who no longer plays. Where are you tuning in from today, and what's one game you've seen and now refuse to fall for again? Share it below. I'm listening. All right, let's get into it. Here's how to outsmart the game without losing your soul. She doesn't want love, she wants control first. You think it started with affection. The soft voice, the playful glances, the way she leaned into you like she was already halfway in love. But that wasn't love, it was the setup. And I know this because I've seen it in myself, in you, in every man who once thought he was the exception. The truth is, a woman rarely hands over her heart without first testing if she can hold the leash. See, she's not trying to fall for you on day one. She's trying to see if you'll fall for her first, and how fast. And the moment you do, the moment you start over-texting, over-explaining, over-investing, she knows. She knows she's in control. Now, don't get me wrong, not all control is toxic. Some women test for safety, for integrity, for strength. But the ones who play games, they test for power. They don't ask, can I trust this man to lead? They ask, can I break this man without him noticing? Because for them, love isn't a connection. It's a chessboard. You make a move, she makes two. You open your heart, she closes hers slightly, just enough for you to chase it. And the cruel part, she might not even be doing it consciously. But it's in the way she was raised. Rewarded when she withheld, validated when she stayed just out of reach. And if you're like most men, you mistake that for mystery. You call it chemistry when what you're actually feeling is emotional uncertainty repackaged as desire. Let me ask you something. When was the last time a woman loved you back with the same clarity you gave her, if you have to think that's your answer? And I'm not here to shame you. I've been there. I've poured my attention into women who only wanted to see how far they could stretch my desire before I noticed they were never going to meet me in the middle. That's why I'm telling you this now. She doesn't want love, not at first. She wants to know if she can own your emotional center, if she can make you question your worth by how she reacts, if she can pull your strings and watch you smile like it's affection. So what do? You learn to hold your frame. You stop offering your devotion before it's been earned. You stop mistaking her attention for truth. You observe, you respond. And you never let your desire override your discernment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And if your thoughts are consumed with pleasing, her decoding, her warmth, or coldness, your soul begins to depend on her behavior to define your peace. But if you remember who you're feeling you are, if you remember that love doesn't require loss of self, then you stop playing the game. And once you stop, she has nothing to control. Now she has a choice. Meet you in truth or walk away in silence. Either way, you win, because you've reclaimed something far more valuable than her affection, your power. Emotional confusion is not a mistake, it's her strategy. You keep wondering why she says one thing and does another. Why she pulls me in so close only to step back right when I start to feel safe. I've asked those same questions late at night, staring at texts that used to glow with warmth and now sit cold and unread. She was sunshine yesterday and today, a storm without warning. You assume it's emotional instability. I used to think so too, but the longer I watched, the more I realized it wasn't clumsiness. It was a technique. Now, maybe not consciously. Maybe she doesn't sit down and plot it on a whiteboard, but her nervous system, her instincts, they know exactly what they're doing. Because confusion is power, and she's learned that if you can't predict her, You'll invest more trying to decode her. You'll chase, you'll overthink, you'll start negotiating with yourself. And every time you do, she wins something. Not your love, not your soul, not the deep masculine protection she secretly longs for, but your emotional leverage. She'll tell you she needs space, then get mad when you give it. She'll say you're too cold, but when you open up, she'll disappear for 3 days. And you'll spend hours trying to solve a puzzle that was never meant to be solved. Why? Because she knows that a confused man is a vulnerable man. A man who doubts himself stops trusting his instincts. He becomes easy to manipulate, not through force, but through uncertainty. And here's what hurts the most. You start doubting your own clarity. You begin wondering if you're the problem, if maybe you're too needy, too rigid, too intense. When the truth is, you're just trying to connect with someone who keeps moving the finish line. But listen, this isn't about bitterness, this is about awareness. Once I saw this game for what it was, everything changed. I stopped chasing clarity from someone who thrived in chaos. I stopped reacting to every hot and cold moment like it was my fault. I began to lead again, not with aggression, but with grounded stillness. Because a man who sees through confusion becomes immune to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth. But if what she's offering isn't truth, just a web of mixed signals, then it's not your job to fix her. It's your job to protect your clarity. So if she texts you with cold energy, you don't panic, you wait. If she pulls back, you don't chase, you breathe. If she sends you 10 signals and none of them align, you step out of the maze and build a mirror instead. Because eventually she'll look into that mirror and see herself clearly. And when she does, she'll know. You were never confused. You were simply refusing to play. That's when you become powerful. That's when you become the man she can't manipulate. Not because you outplayed her, but because you outgrew the need to decode her mood in order to feel your worth. You want to outsmart her games. Do this. Stay calm. Stay slow. Stay grounded in truth. Because the moment you stop responding to her confusion, she has 2 options. Rise to your clarity or fade into the fog she created. Either way, you remain untouched. The moment you chase, you lose leverage. It doesn't start with a dramatic gesture. It starts with something small. She takes a little longer to reply. She says she's busy more often. She cancels plans last minute. Not once, but enough that you feel it. And what do? You lean in, you text more, you get softer. You try to show her that you're understanding, that you're not like other guys, that you care. But what you don't realize, what I didn't realize until I lost myself doing it, is that every inch you lean in, you give her power. Because now she knows she doesn't have to try. Now she knows that the more distant she becomes, the more invested you get. And here's the cold truth. She feels less attraction the more you chase, not because she's cruel, but because pursuit without purpose signals neediness, and neediness suffocates polarity. Women are drawn to men who hold their frame, not just physically, emotionally, energetically. The moment you leave your center to chase her energy, you lose something essential, your masculine gravity. I've been there. I've said it's okay when it wasn't. I've waited hours for replies. I've pretended I didn't feel the disrespect just so I could keep the connection alive. But the connection wasn't alive. I was just afraid to let it die. Because when you chase, you're not chasing her. You're chasing the version of her that showed up in the beginning, before the games, before the distance, before she realized you were emotionally available, no matter what she gave in return. And I get it. You want to show loyalty. You want to prove you're different. You want to believe that persistence is love. But persistence without reciprocity is self-abandonment. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And you are not living when you're stuck in a loop of proving your worth to someone who only values you when you retreat. So stop chasing. Start observing. Start noticing how you feel when her energy shifts. Start honoring the parts of you that ache when you abandon yourself just to stay close to her. You don't have to cut her off. You don't have to become cold. You just have to pull back into your own center. Let her feel the absence of your attention. Let her wonder where the validation went. Let her sit with the silence you used to fill, because in that silence power returns to you. And maybe she'll come back or maybe she won't. But either way, you'll finally be free. Free from the loop, free from the performance, free from sacrificing your peace for a feeling that keeps slipping away. She was never the prize. Your self-respect is. And the moment you stop chasing, you start attracting not just her, but everything aligned with the man you're meant to be. Attention is her currency. Don't spend yours blindly. You might think it's love she wants, but more often than not, what keeps her engaged isn't love. It's your attention, not commitment, not depth, just the sweet hit of knowing your mind is occupied by her. I learned this the hard way, pouring out energy like it was endless. Compliments, good mornings, thoughtful check-ins, long conversations, not realizing that every ounce of attention I gave her was a deposit into her power, and the moment she got full, she disappeared. Because for some women, especially those who are still playing games, attention is a drug. Not your love, not your time, just the confirmation that they're still the center of your emotional world. You think you're being caring, but what you're doing is teaching her that your attention is cheap. And we both know anything that comes too easily is valued less. So she pushes the line, pulls away, returns, disappears again. And each time your attention follows like a man begging to be seen. But here's the Stoic truth. You can't control how she behaves. You can only control what you invest in. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. And if you're constantly thinking about her when she'll text why she's distant, what you could have done differently, you're not in love. You're in emotional debt. Your energy is no longer yours. It's hers even when she's not around. And this is where you have to become ruthless, not with her, with your own focus, because your attention is your currency. What you focus on, you empower. What you ignore, you weaken. If she hasn't earned your consistency, don't give it. If she's inconsistent, don't reward it with more effort. You don't owe anyone endless access to your time just because they made you feel good for a week. I used to think that if I just gave more, she would finally see me. But all she saw was that I would never stop giving even when she gave less and less in return. And what happened? She left not because I didn't care, but because I cared without standards. So now I hold my attention like gold. I give it slowly. I give it to those who reciprocate. I give it to women who show up with clarity, not emotional bait. You want to outsmart the games, don't match her inconsistency. Outvalue it. Withdraw from drama like a king leaving a table where the food has spoiled. Because when she realizes she no longer controls your focus, when your attention is no longer guaranteed, that's when the dynamic shifts. That's when she has to either step into integrity or leave the stage. And either outcome, you win. Because your energy is no longer a resource to be drained, it's a gift to be earned. So don't spend your attention blindly, because once you stop handing it out for free, you'll finally see who was actually there for connection and who was only there to be fed. Your silence scares her more than your anger. She expects your reaction. She expects raised voices, sharp words, heated texts at midnight. She's been trained by other men by drama-filled patterns to believe that confrontation equals care. So when you don't react, when you don't explain yourself, beg, or try to decode the latest mood swing, you trigger something deeper than rage. You trigger insecurity. I used to believe that if I didn't defend myself, I'd lose her, that silence meant weakness. But Stoicism taught me otherwise. Silence, when it comes from stillness, not fear, is the most commanding posture a man can take, because women can argue with your words, but they can't manipulate your calm. When she pushes your buttons and finds no response, no emotional scramble, no desperate reassurance, just quiet presence, you're no longer predictable. You're dangerous in the way only grounded men are. She'll wonder, why isn't he reacting? Is he done? Does he see through me now? And that uncertainty, it terrifies her more than your anger ever could. You see, anger is still a form of engagement. It says, you matter enough to break my peace, but silence. Silence says, "I've reclaimed my peace and I won't trade it, not even for you." There were moments when I'd type out paragraphs trying to explain myself, trying to prove I was misunderstood, trying to calm the storm, but all it did was fuel the game. Because every word I gave her in conflict, she read as investment. But when I chose stillness, not stonewalling, not manipulation, but intentional pause, everything shifted. That's when she leaned in. That's when she questioned herself. That's when she finally asked, "Are we okay?" Marcus Aurelius said, "How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says, or does or thinks, but only what he does himself." You win not by winning the argument, but by refusing to be baited into one. Your silence must not be passive aggression. It must be presence, the kind that says, "I'm here, but I won't lower myself to chaos." And if she's the kind of woman who thrives on chaos, she'll either rise to meet your calm or leave to find someone else to fight with. Either way, you protect your center. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to defend yourself to be respected. And you don't need to break your peace to prove your point. Let your stillness speak. Let her feel the absence of reaction and the presence of boundaries. Because once she realizes she can no longer get a rise out of you, once she sees that her moods no longer move you, she'll either deepen in respect or reveal that she was never looking for a man, just a mirror for her chaos. And if that's the case, let her go in silence, without closure, without commentary. Because the man who can walk away without noise is the man who has mastered himself. And that's the man she'll remember when the silence finally echoes louder than any argument ever did. Her games end the moment you stop being a player. You think you're navigating her maze, trying to find the right response, the perfect timing, the magic words to unlock her full affection. But every time you adjust, every time you respond with strategy, instead of truth, you're playing the same game, just on her terms. And I know what that feels like. The anxiety, the second-guessing, wondering if silence will push her away or if presence will smother her. It's exhausting. But here's the quiet truth I wish someone told me sooner. You don't have to play. You don't need to match her tactics. You don't need to mirror her flakiness with detachment. You don't need to win her heart by proving you're the better chess master. Because the man who wins never plays the game to begin with. The moment you stop being a player, she has nothing left to manipulate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And in your case, the best way to outmaneuver her behavior is to stop reacting to it. She flirts with others in front of you. Don't argue, don't scold, just notice. Withdraw your attention, not as punishment, but as clarity. She cancels plans last minute again. Don't beg for a reschedule. You're not desperate. You simply adjust gracefully. Permanently. She posts cryptic quotes about men never understanding her cool. Let her preach to the void. You're too busy being grounded to reply to riddles, because when you stop participating in her emotional tug-of-war, you become something she can't predict, and that is power. I used to think I had to match her energy, that if she pulled away, I'd pull harder. If she turned cold, I'd turn calculated. But all that did was make me more invested in the game than in my own peace. So I stopped. I stopped trying to be clever. I stopped trying to win. I started showing up as a man who didn't need to impress, because I finally understood. The right woman doesn't need you to perform, and the wrong one only wants you if you keep performing. And that's not love. That's theater. And you weren't born for the stage. You were born to lead. You want to break the cycle, stop reacting, start observing, and hold your values tighter than you hold her opinion of you. Let her games unravel under the pressure of your stillness. Let her see that you're not trying to beat her, you're simply not available for drama. And when she realizes that your attention must now be earned, that your heart is not an open faucet for inconsistency, the game ends. Because she's either forced to level up to your clarity or fade into the chaos she created. And if she fades, let her with peace, with silence, with dignity. Because you don't need to win her game. You already won when you stopped playing. She respects a man who walks away with dignity. There comes a point, a quiet internal turning, when you stop trying to fix it. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally woken up. You realize she's not confused. She's not overwhelmed. She's not waiting for the perfect moment to love you, right? She's just not choosing you. And deep down, she knows exactly what she's doing. And so do you. I've been there staring at a version of love I knew wasn't healthy, but still holding on, hoping she'd wake up one day and say, "I see you now. I'm ready." But that day never came, because what she really needed was to see me walk away, not in anger, not in revenge, but in dignity. You see, most men either beg or explode. They cry or they cut off without warning. They go no contact and still check her stories at 2 a.m. But the rare man, the man she never forgets, is the one who leaves without noise, without blame, without a single ounce of self-pity. That man doesn't disappear to make a point. He simply chooses himself quietly, completely. And that silence, it echoes louder than any desperate speech ever could. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. So when the love turns into a game, when your kindness is mistaken for weakness, when your loyalty is met with indifference, you don't need to explain yourself. You need to walk with posture, with peace, with full presence. Because your value isn't proven by how much you stay through chaos. It's revealed by how gracefully you exit when your presence is no longer honored. And believe me, she feels it. She may not say it, she may double down on pride, she may even pretend she never cared. But deep in her emotional memory, your exit burns itself in, not because it was dramatic, but because it was clean. You didn't beg, you didn't break down, you didn't try to teach her a lesson. You simply showed her through your absence what your presence was actually worth. And that kind of man leaves a scar of respect. So if you're there now on the edge, wondering if it's time to go, ask yourself, is staying making me smaller? Am I losing myself just to keep her attention? If the answer is yes, then brother, it's time. And when you do it from your highest self. No accusations, no last-ditch efforts, no reaction. Just you rooted in truth, aligned with peace, walking not away from her, but back towards yourself. And when you walk with dignity, you don't need closure. You are the closure. Outsmarting her means mastering yourself. You came here looking for tactics, maybe a line, a strategy, a psychological trick to turn the game in your favor, to flip the dynamic, to make her want you more than you want her. And I get it. I came for the same thing. I wanted leverage. I wanted the upper hand. I wanted to win, not just her affection, but the invisible scoreboard where all my past failures still haunted me. But the longer I walked this path, the more I realized she's not the opponent. The real game was always within me. She was just the mirror, a mirror reflecting back every part of me that still needed validation, still feared abandonment, still mistook attention for love. So if you want to outsmart her, stop trying to read her mood, decode her texts, or interpret her silence. Start asking yourself, why do I need her to act a certain way in order to feel secure? Why do I still chase approval from someone who hasn't earned my truth? Why am I so afraid to walk away from something that drains me? The Stoics never taught us how to manipulate people. They taught us how to master our reactions to them. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And that's it right there. You don't outsmart her by playing her game better. You outsmart her by refusing to play at all. You take your focus off her behavior and place it back on your inner alignment. You stop living at the mercy of her attention and start living in obedience to your own standard. Because mastery doesn't look like dominance, it looks like peace. It's in the way you breathe deeply when she pulls away. It's in the way you stay calm when she tests your boundaries. It's in the way you choose silence not to punish, but to protect your clarity. And when she feels that, when she senses you're no longer trying to manage her emotions, but are simply anchored in your own, that's when the entire dynamic shifts, not because she's changed, but because you have. You've become the man who no longer seeks to be chosen. You choose yourself. You've become the man who can love fully but never lose himself in the process. And that man, that's the rare one. That's the one she can't control, the one she respects. Even if she walks away, the one who, without saying a word, forces her to examine who she's become. So if you want to outsmart the games, the ghosting, the drama, the emotional manipulation, outsmart your own need to fix it. Outsmart the version of yourself that still thinks you're not enough unless she validates you. Outsmart the urge to prove your worth through pursuit. Because the day you master yourself, the day you stand still while the world tries to spin you, you become the kind of man that no woman plays games with. Not because you're unplayable, but because she knows you've already won the only game that matters, the one between you and your soul. And that game ends in silence, stillness, strength, peace. And from that place, you don't chase, you don't react, you don't compete, you lead.